Last week I made an episode of Positives on Pac-Man for the Atari 2600, and a lot of people sent me messages saying that they really didn't like the way that I actually showed off the footage of the game, saying that the flickering on Pac-Man with the ghosts is actually not as bad as it would be on a real TV. And you know what? They're right. Back with old CRT monitors, Pac-Man didn't have that terrible flickering that you saw in the video. However, there still is some flickering there. The best way to show you what the difference is between the two versions is that I decided to show you a way that you could actually emulate Pac-Man more properly and accurately on a computer that kind of makes it look like you're playing it off the CRT screen. Now, just follow these steps. This example I'm going to be showing you is done with Stella, an Atari 2600 emulator that does really good justice to emulating old games. Now first, click on Pac-Man, then go to Options, click on Game Properties, and then click on Display. From here, set Phosphor to Yes, and then click OK. If you turn on that option, the emulator will sort of look more like a regular TV, with a little bit of a ghosting artifact that kind of brings in more of that less pronounced flickering that you see in the ghosts. It still doesn't make the game amazing because there's a lot of problems, but it will make it a little bit more easy to play. Pac-Man on the Atari is still a bad game. Now look, guys, I know a lot of you grew up playing this game when it was brand new and you think the world of it. Some of you look at it as this nostalgic game from an era that was just amazing for gameplay. But Pac-Man isn't a good game. Miss Pac-Man shows you how good a Pac-Man game could have been on the Atari 2600 if they just took a little bit more time. Miss Pac-Man is a great game on the Atari 2600, and it improves on many of the faults that you see with Pac-Man from the same system. The audio in Miss Pac-Man is 1,000 times better than Pac-Man. The sound effects that happen when you pick up a pellet are just a lot less jarring, and the music is actually properly composed. There's a big difference between these two games in the way that they sound, and one of the best parts is when you pick up a power pellet. Picking up a power pellet in the original Pac-Man has this looping sound effect that really doesn't change. But Miss Pac-Man kind of changes the closer you get to the end of the power pellet stage. And if you listen to it properly, it will actually tell you when your power-up is about to end. It makes timing your attacks on ghosts a lot easier because you can actually tell when your power is about to finish. Another thing that Miss Pac-Man does better that the original Pac-Man doesn't is that there's a lot more stages. Now in the original Pac-Man, it's just the same stage over and over and over again. But in Miss Pac-Man, every time you play a stage twice, it changes to a new one. And you have a whole bunch of stages that kind of just alter the gameplay a little bit, but makes it more fun and less repetitive. On top of that, the farther you go in Miss Pac-Man, the harder it gets. The power pellets get a little bit shorter in time, and just everything about the game kind of ramps up in difficulty, and it makes it a little bit of a challenge, but really rewarding to play. And if that wasn't enough, the flickering of the ghosts in Miss Pac-Man is actually far better. Even if you emulated the game and you didn't turn on phosphorus mode, you would still be able to play it pretty well. A lot of people also sent me messages saying that Pac-Man 4K is another example how Pac-Man can be done on the original Atari 2600 hardware. However, that's a new game. It wasn't made at the same time period as the original Pac-Man, so it's kind of different. We have newer tools and different understanding of how the hardware works nowadays, giving us a better scope for designing games for the system. Miss Pac-Man is a better accurate representation of what Atari was capable of at the time period, and because of that, that's the game I like to look at when taking a look at Pac-Man and seeing how well it can be done on that hardware. There are thousands of versions of Pac-Man. You can play it on a bunch of different systems. There are so many different ways you can play it, so many different ways that the game is presented to you, and it really doesn't get tiring playing the game, because every time you play it, it's always just a little bit different. And while I don't recommend playing the original Pac-Man on the Atari 2600, there are other options on that system that do the exact same game concept justice. So, try Miss Pac-Man. You might like it a lot more than you think.